Hi and welcome to the second part of this Blender Neon Landscape beginner's tutorial. So let's open up Blender and continue our tutorial. And we'll go to File, Open, and we'll open up the last project we started from, or we finished. And we can go to Render View and we can see what we did. We'll press F12 and we've got our landscape done, and we've got these particles dropping, or these square objects dropping down. So what we'll do is go to File, Save As, and we'll save it as version 2. Let's click Save. And now we want to animate the camera. So to do that, let's press N on our keyboard. That gets rid of the transform. So the letter N opens and closes this transformer. We want to press number 7 to get into top view. So we can see top view and the camera is selected. So click on the camera here. And what we want to do is set our end frame to around, let's say, we're going to make this quite a long clip, so let's make this around 400. And you can't see all of the keyframe or all of the frames down here, so you need to move your mouse wheel, rotate it downwards, and then just drag across and rotate it down until you can see 400 and 0 here. You can middle mouse click to move the timeline like this, and then you can use the mouse wheel to zoom in and out. You just want to make sure you can see 0 here and 400 here. Let's go to File, Save, and then we'll go to the solid view. And we're going to zoom in a little bit. In fact, we can stay around this sort of height, this sort of zoom height. And we'll go to the first frame. So click here to jump to the first frame. And we'll hit the record button. And we will, with the camera selected, we'll move over there, move over to the camera and press I, the letter I, to insert a location, rotation and scale. So that inserts a keyframe for this camera, and its location, rotation and scale is here. Now probably on the x-axis we can set it to 0 for now. So it's center. Now it's right in the middle of this landscape, you can say, along this green axis, right? We can go all the way down to around frame, let's say around frame, we want to leave a few frames at the end, right? So around frame 300 should be good, and then we can do some work with these last 100 frames. So let's go to File, Save, and all we're going to do is click on this green arrow. So make sure the Move tool is selected, and you've selected the camera, you've added a keyframe, and we're just going to drag this camera upwards. Use the Shift key and the middle mouse button to pan upwards, and we're just going to drag this all the way up to the other side here. So just keep dragging it all the way up, and then zoom in at the end here, and we want the camera to stop before it gets to the very end. So around here should be fine, maybe a little bit more back, something around here, actually here should be fine, right here. So let's untick the record button, go back to the first frame, go back to the render view, press 0 on your keyboard, and now you can see what the camera sees. And we can right click on this little timeline here, right click on this blue cursor here, and we can drag across. And we can see we're going to have to avoid some obstacles, right? You could fly through them like this if you wanted to, but I think it would be nice if we can move around them. And we can see us flying through this scene like this. Now really, we made a little mistake here. So what we want to do, this can easily be fixed. This is not a problem actually. What we want to do is click on this keyframe here, left click on it and drag it to 60. We don't actually want to do anything at the beginning. We'll have the objects falling in, and we might even adjust that as well actually. But for now we just want to start the movement on frame 60. Because what we're going to do, let's click Save. And in fact we can go to this particle emitter and go to its settings, and we can free the bake, and we'll set the start frame to 60 here, and click Bake All Dynamics. Now it won't start emitting particles until it gets to frame 60, and we need to do the same for the right one. So click on the right emitter, click on the particle settings, free the bake, and that's already set to 60 because it's sharing the same settings because we duplicated it, remember? But you have to rebake the dynamics anyway because the cubes are dropping from a different angle. So it won't do anything until it gets to frame 60, then it will start to move. So on frame 0, or on frame 1, let's just go to File, Save, and let's go to the camera and go to the object data here. And on the end here, we want to press the letter I. So make sure the record button is set on here. And then move over to this end here and press the letter I. And that inserts a keyframe here. And we want to move to frame 60 as well. And go back here and press the letter I as well. So we've got 2 keyframes for the end part of this view for the camera here. This is the camera far clipping distance basically, yeah? So we want to go back to the first frame and set the camera clip all the way down to 0 or 0. Let's set it to 0, and it was this number here. Just click on it and type in 0. Then we can untick the record button and click play, and now our scene will get built before the camera moves. Because really all we're doing is saying to the camera, how far can you see into the distance? You can see nothing into the distance, and as we move across the timeline, when you get to this frame 60, you can see 100 into the distance. So if you were to set this to a higher value, then in theory you should be able to see more into the distance, right? But we don't really want that. We want it to set it to 100 here. 100. The nice thing about that is as we move along the scene, all of these things along the edges, the canyons and stuff, will get built as we're moving along the scene. So we need to get rid of these, right? Here, we're not get rid of them, we need to move them. So let's middle mouse click and come up here somewhere. Let's find those objects. So we've got these 3 square cubes here. We can be a bit careful here what you're doing, right? Because you've got the camera selected. So move back to the first frame. Click on these 3. So click on the first cube and then shift click on these other 2 cubes here, and just drag them all the way out to the side here. Their only purpose is to be the particles for the emitter here, right? They serve no other purpose in this scene. So we can move them right out the way here. We can drag them and maybe move them up to here so they're out of the camera view. Then we can press 0 again on our keyboard, 0, and that takes us back into the camera view. Now where you might find this a bit strange is when you go back to the camera on the first frame, it's black, and you probably sometimes are wondering what's happened. It's because we set the clipping, remember? So you need to scrub a few frames before you're actually going to see anything here. So remember that. Can get a bit confusing. Sometimes you go back to the camera on the first frame and it's black and you don't understand why, but it's because we did that clipping right here. So on frame 60 is where the camera starts to move. So let's hit the record button. Let's click on the camera here and let's go to the camera data here, right? The object data here. And we're going to move across the timeline. We're going to get to this position. Yours might be different. You may not even have an object here, an obstacle. You might not have one. So at around frame 90, I'm going to move it on the y-axis to the side so it can bypass that. And I'm going to rotate it on the z-axis, not the z. I'm going to rotate it on the y-axis like this way, like this. So as the camera is flying, it's going to move around that obstacle, right? So we need to actually move it a little bit more to the left here. So let's move it a bit more to the left here. Now it's going to maintain that rotation until you tell it to do something else. So between here and let's say frame 120, I want to rotate the camera back. So on the y-axis I'm going to press 0, so that rotates it back again. And then on the x-axis you can play around where you want to position it. I want to position it around here so it's got a straight path down the middle. So let's go back, and it's going to swerve around this, and that's like kind of hitting here, right? You've got to play around with this a little bit. So let's see, around here on frame 106, I'm going to move it to the side a little bit. So all we're doing is inserting keyframes. It's important you have the record button here, so when you're changing these settings, Blender will work out where this camera should be positioned. So it's going to fly to the side straight away, it's going to rotate, it's going to flatten out the rotation, and then it's going to move forward, and we might have a few more obstacles to get past. Here it can squeeze through nicely, here is okay, then it gets to this object here, and here we're going to move it so it can go through this path here. So let's move it to the left here, and what we might do is actually bring the camera up a little bit. It's going to fly over this little gap. So it'll fly over here, and then here we want to move it to the left a little bit. Then it's going to get to here. So here we'll move it to this direction. I'm going to rotate it again on the y-axis, so like here. So it looks like it's flying through at an angle, right? Let's see, on this frame here, we need to set the y to 0. So between these distances it's still flat, right? And then it's going to swerve to the side. So on this one here, we need to set the y to 0 as well, so it's flat. So these are the keyframes, right? So between these 2 points, we make sure the camera is level. And then it's going to get to this point here where it needs to turn. And then it will flatten out again. So around here, we'll probably rotate the camera to this side. So it's going to swerve this way, then flatten out. And at this point here, we can adjust where the camera is. So on the y-axis, we can move it back a little bit, maybe to here, right here. Let's go file save, and let's go back to the first frame, untick the record button and click the play button, and we can see what our fly through looks like. Okay, I'm quite happy with that. I think that looks okay. Now, really I want to move this camera back a bit on this frame here. So I'm going to click on this keyframe. Let's move the cursor to this keyframe right here. This is the very last keyframe. Hit the record button, and I don't want it to be too close to this backdrop. I want it to be a bit further back. So I'm going to move the camera back a bit to around here, and I want to move it up, raise it up a little bit to around here. Let's see, something like this. So let's just see, here should be good. Okay, so once you set up the camera here, you want to untick the record button. You can adjust that afterwards if you want, and we want to add this sphere in the background rotating. We did that in the last example that I did. So to do that, let's press number 7. That takes us to the top view, and we're going to press let's zoom out a little bit here. We'll go into wireframe mode. This is the camera right here, right? This is our center point here. So we'll press Shift A, and we're going to add a let's see, a UV sphere, and we're going to drag that UV sphere to behind here, right behind here. Then we'll press, in fact what we'll do is we'll press N on our keyboard, and that UV sphere is here, right? So we want to drag it into this collection up the top. It's not a particle, so let's drag it up here. So it's here, and then the UV sphere, it's not really a planet, but we're going to call it a planet. Here, planet. Then in here, lock object to. Sometimes you can't see them all in here. I think there's a little thing in Blender they're still working on. So you can't see all the objects in here. So we need to type in planet. P-L-A-N-E-T, planet. And then you'll see it selecting here. So you click on it. Now the camera is going to rotate around this planet. So if we zoom back in and middle mouse click, we'll rotate around the planet and we can see what's going on. Otherwise it's going to rotate around this center point here. It's quite difficult to make judgment, right? So press 0 on your keyboard. 0 will show you what the camera sees. So this is what the camera can see in the scene at the moment. And we want to make this sphere bigger. So let's move it up a little bit here. And then press S to scale it. And we want to scale it out. So it's something like this big. We want to move it over to this corner here. Bring it down a little bit. So it's sitting around here. It's going to rotate around here. This sort of position. But it's behind all of these mountains or whatever you want to call them, right? It's going to rotate in the background here. Now, what we want to do is duplicate this this planet. So press Shift and D to duplicate it. Shift D. In fact, we might not need to really do that. Let's try it this way. I don't think we need to duplicate it. What we'll do is go into the render view. And we can see the spheres here, but it's got no. We can drag it down a little bit actually. It's around here. It's got no material. So first thing we'll do is give it a material. So let's go to New. Make sure it's selected. Click New here. And then let's make it an emission. And I'm going to make this one like an orange color. You can pick whatever color you want. And then we'll go to the modifier. And we'll make it a wireframe. And then we need to reduce the thickness to something like this. Let's press F12. And then we can see this sphere in the background that's going to rotate. And we want to increase the, because these lines are quite thin on it, we want to increase the strength to around 10. And then press F12. Now you can see it's glowing, it's going to be spinning in the background when it gets to this point here. So, let's move back, right? So we need to judge when do we actually see that sphere. So we can start seeing this sphere. If we be very accurate, we can start seeing it on frame 232. You can see it just about right there. If we press F12, let's see if we can see it in the render. We can see it in the render just appearing here. And that's on frame 232. 232. So let's just move back to 230, make life easy. 230. And we'll hit the record button. And we'll make sure the planet is selected, and we'll press I to insert we can just do a location rotation. We're not really going to scale it, so we can, in fact, we can just do a rotation. So click rotation here, and then we're going to move across the timeline to frame 300. That's where, in fact, we want this to continue rotating all the way to 400 here. So on frame 400, we can go to the object data, and we want to rotate it on the Z-axis. And we don't want to rotate it too much. We want to rotate it maybe about 90 degrees. So it's rotating quite slowly, right? We don't want it to be rotating too fast. So I think that would be good. Let's hit the record button and we'll click play from here. And we can see that object rotating. If we press F12, we'll see what it looks like in this scene. Okay, now let's go to file save, and we want to add a few light sources in here. That's going to help this end sort of scene. We may add a few. We can actually add a few light sources during the animation sequence, but for now, we're going to press. Let's see. Let's press number 7. That takes us to the top view, right? We'll go to the wireframe. We'll press Shift A, and we'll insert a point light here. And we're going to drag that point light all the way to the where the camera is, around here somewhere at the back. So you can see it's right around the back there. We can press 0 on our keyboard and then go back to the render view. We can see our light source here now. We can adjust it and move it around to where we want to position it. Let's see, so on the y-axis that will move it backwards and forwards, right? We can move it up a little bit, so around here, and then we'll press Shift D to duplicate that light source, put 1 in the middle, and then we'll press Shift D again to duplicate it and put 1 on the right hand side here. So we've got these 3 light sources, and we need to adjust them and change the colors. So let's click on this. Let's see, where are the lights in here? They're all going to be down here. So grab all 3 of these point lights. Let's see. Here you can see the 3 point lights, and drag them, select them all. So select the first one, hold down the Shift key and click the bottom 2. So you've got all 3, and drag them into the collection above here. Now you've got all the 3 point lights. You could label them, so we can call this one point left. This one here will be point middle, and this last one will be point right. So it's worth labeling these things, because when you come to do something with them, it's nice that you know that this is the left, that's the right, and so forth. So we click on the left one. Here's the left one. We'll go to the point light settings here, and we're going to change the color to maybe like an orange color. Let's get an orange there, orange, something like this. The middle one, we'll select it, and I'm going to make that like a green color. Let's see, green, maybe, yeah, green. And then the right one, we'll make it purple, like this. So we're already in camera view, right? Yep, we're in camera view. Let's press N on our keyboard. That will remove this transformer. We can zoom in, and we can hold down the Shift key and the middle mouse button just to get our camera, see as much of what the camera is going to see. This is what the camera will see. And we can click on the land here, land, and we can go to its material, and we can scroll down, and we can set the roughness to, you know, if you set it right down, you're going to see these lights. They're going to be quite prominent, right? We might actually reduce. And it's down to you, like what sort of effect you want on these lights, how bright you want them. You can change the metallic, I believe. Yeah, the metallic will affect it as well. So now it's just about you experimenting with these lights to see what sort of effect you want. I kind of chose orange because the planet was orange here. We had green and purple in the scene, and I think you should try and stick with a color theme rather than picking random colors. Then you can click on these point lights, and you can change the energy if they're too much. You know, if it's too much, you can change the energy. You can play around with them. You can change the specular, so that will just reduce how much of this shine it gives off. That's it. That's for you to now go and experiment. So let's just do one more thing. Let's go back to the first frame, and we'll click play, and we'll just have a quick watch. And there's one problem here. If we move back, we can see there's a light source here, right? So that's this light here. That's this one. That was the original light that was created in the first setup scene. So we can actually right click and delete this. And you could take more point lights and let's just actually see what that looks like, right? So what we could do is press number 7, and we could move down here, and these are 3-point lights. So let's select them all. Let's select these 3 here. So we've got 3 of them there. We should be able to press Shift D to duplicate all 3 of them, and then we can drag them to another point in the scene. Let's say around here. So we can see these are the original ones. Maybe in wireframe would be a bit easier, maybe not. Let's go back into this. So you can see 3 here, we've got 3 here. Then we can press Shift D again to duplicate, and we can move them down further to around here. You can randomly place them wherever you want, really. Let's just move out a little bit. Shift D. If we don't like this, we can get rid of it. Shift D to duplicate. Something like that. So now we've got these point lights all the way across the scene, but at certain distances and certain, only at certain points and not everywhere. So if we press 0, we'll go back into the front camera view, and we can see what them point lights might look like in our scene. So I think they look okay. It might be nice if those point lights are not in like a flat place. Maybe they're, let's have a look, like this one here doesn't look great, right? These 3 here. So if we go back to the top view and zoom in a little bit, well, we might be able to do this in camera view 0. Let's go into camera view. So the first 3 get shown here. So we've actually got them selected already, right? These are the last 3 that we placed, so they're still pre-selected. That will be, really we should be able to work it out. So let's have a look here. So the 5 would be the ones that are closest to the camera at the beginning, and then 4 would, these, you can go by the numbers here, right? Because you put them in sequence. So really we've selected right now, you can see it's marked orange here. So 5, this one will be the right one. Then this one here, if we shift and click it, will be the middle one. And if we shift and click left 5, that will be this one here. Then we should be able to go to here and change the Y location. But it's only doing it on one of them, not all 3. So let's press Control Z. We need to parent these really. So we press Control P, move to here and press Control P. We can parent the objects. Then if we move them, we can move all 3 at the same time. This is kind of optional, this stuff, right? You don't really need to do this, but really what I would like is some of those lights to be hitting the side rather than just being hitting the floor. So when we move through the scene, like we'll get the light off of the edges here. So these 3 here are these will be number 4s, right? So if we click on this left one here, this is the right one actually, this is the left one. Let's see, these should be 4s, right? 4 here, left one. So we can just drag it so that it's closer to this. You can even move it up a little bit if you wanted to. So it's closer to the edge here. And this purple one should be able to, it's really hard to click on these sometimes, but this will be right number 4. So middle, this is right. I've spelled right wrong here, but it doesn't matter. Right here. We can move that one to maybe where it's having a bit more effect. Let's press 0. Maybe I'll move it up a bit here. And the green one I'll leave in the center. This green one is middle, this one, middle 4. What you can do with that one is just reduce, you can even turn it off if you wanted to, but maybe we'll change its radius so it's not so like straight down the middle. We can change just that one's radius so that it's more wider, right? Something like this. Maybe this one on the left we can change the radius as well a little bit. So we'll go to left 4 and change that one's radius a little bit. So I think that looks much better now, rather than it just being 3 lights on the floor. That just looked a bit rubbish. And we can probably do the same with this middle one here. So that will be number 5, middle. This one here, right 5, middle. No, that's right, so middle will be here. Then we can change that radius to widen it up. Then the colors are like blending in. It looks a little bit better, right? So it takes a bit of work. Nothing comes for free. You got to put a bit of energy in, a bit of thought. This I like here. These ones here. They're not in too bad a position, but that will be number 3, right? So that would be 3 middle, which is this one right here. We can change that one's radius. And then the orange and the other ones are okay actually where they're positioned. I don't mind them there. They're okay. These ones here. Let's see. The orange and the green. These will be 2s, right? So 2 middle will be this green middle one. We'll change the radius of that one a little bit. I think the purple one's buried inside of this one here. So purple will be the right one, number 2. You can see it's right inside this object, so you won't really see much light out of it. But that's okay. I think we'll leave it there because we can see it having some effect. Maybe move it up a little bit. So around here. And then the left one, which will be left number 2, is this one. We can change that one's radius. Let's file save. So these 3 here I'm actually okay with. And then we get to this end scene. Maybe we'll change the radius of these a little bit. So those are going to be our original ones. So this is our original left, our original right, and we want the original middle one, which is this point light. This is this green one, and we'll change its radius to something like this. So it's not, we can probably bring down its energy a bit maybe. I think that's actually okay, around 6. So it's all down for you to experiment and play around with the lights. So when we fly through this scene, we get some good lighting inside of it, some effects, rather than it just being the straight flat colors all the way through this whole scene. We'll at least get some lighting in there, and it looks a bit nice, right? Looks quite nice. We could go to the let's try land and go to the material. We should be able to this is really for you to experiment with, like the roughness of the material that's reflecting this light. It's for you to really play around with, so you can play around with the metallic here and try and get it to what you like. So this is for you to experiment. I'll leave you to do that. But we've pretty much got all of our scene done. Let's just give it one more play. It's worth pausing at some point here and just rendering out a frame. So press F12 and just see what it looks like in the render. I think it's okay. Can continue playing and just randomly pause at certain points and press F12 to render out that frame. Now these cubes, they're not really emitting enough light, I don't think, because we want to see more glow, especially like this blue one here. So what we can do with that is we can go to the cubes here. So we've got the blue cube here. We can go to its material and set this to 20. Just increase these. The green one, set it to 20, and then the purple one, set that one to 20, and then press F12, we should see a bit more of a glow. Maybe that's not even enough. Let's go to the blue one and set it to 60. I think that's what we're going to get out of it. We'll have to change the bloom settings if we want to see more of a glow on it. So I think 20 was fine. In here we've got the render. There's this radius that we can play around with. I think something around 3 is going to be good. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. That looks pretty good. Okay, so we're about done with this first animation sequence with the camera and setting up all of our lighting and stuff like that. So I'm going to save this. In the next tutorial, I'll show you how to create this text that's going to pop out of the ground, and then we'll do our final frame renders, and then we'll be pretty much done with this tutorial. Okay, join me in the next tutorial, and I look forward to seeing you in part 3.